Welcome to Columbros, the podcast where bros talk about Columbo. I'm Jeff Grubb, joined by Mike Minotti. We are on to episode 3, Mike Minotti. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like there may be a murder afoot, a murder most foul, my dear Grubb.
This episode it's Dead Weight is the name?
Yeah, Dead Weight, cute.
Yeah, that's a lot of cute stuff in this episode.
It's a cutie.
It's a just cutie, like of an episode. I am still very excited about this little project we got going. Every time I boot up an episode of Columbo, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. I love to be here. Love to be watching this. Just love Peter Falk. This episode is not as good as the previous two that we've had so far. Has been my quick takeaway from it, and we'll get into all that stuff. But I still enjoyed myself. I still had a good time. How about you?
No, I think that's right. I think this is definitely the weakest of the three so far. Definitely not as good as Murder by the Book. Not as good as Death Lends a Hand. We'll get into it. I think, biggest problem, the killer just isn't quite as interesting in this one, but there's still a lot of fun to be had here, and even some behind the scenes drama with this one. Jeff.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if you know him, but
looking forward to hearing about that. Okay, so let's get started here. This is the third episode. We're gonna just hop right into the plot here and how it goes down. We start with a major general named Martin J. Hollister. He is at his home in his bathrobe, and he is packing up a bunch of cool-looking military stuff. He's got a guy that has got a lot of cool-looking military stuff. When suddenly a man named Dutton pops into his home and is like, hey, things are going bad. The government has a new inspector general, and they are investigating everything, all these military contracts. And if they do that, they're going to discover that our military contracts have been defrauding the government because you've been overcharging us and I've been approving them, and we've both been pocketing a lot of that money. This has got Dutton freaked out. Hollister, though, who is the older gentleman here, he is just like, listen, this is not a big deal. Just calm down. And you can tell Dutton's not going to calm down. Dutton says, I am going to leave the country. I'm going to get out of the country and I'm going to disappear. And that's when Hollister's like, that's not good enough. You can't do that. And he's Dutton assures him, hey, I'm not going to tell on you. I'm not going to say anything. And you know what? That's not even a problem because they're never going to find me. I'm going to go to Geneva and then I'm going to disappear. I took my a month's leave, in fact, from the military. Dutton also is a colonel in the military. That's how he approves these things. And he says, I've taken a 30-day leave, so they're not even going to notice that I'm missing for 30 days. And then after that, they'll have a hard time tracking me down. Hollister says, picks up his pistol and shoots the man. And that is our murder. This feels about right for most Columbo murders. Immediately, I'm like, this guy who is defrauding the government here, I already think he's kind of slimy. And that's how I always want to be feeling about my Columbo villains, Mike.
Right. Plus a war hero, so probably not the first man that he's killed.
Yes, absolutely.
Even if the government didn't okay this one, right?
Yes. No, they did not okay this one, as far as we're aware. So that's the murder. And then we kind of get to a point where he's got to figure out how he's going to cover this up. But we don't see much of this immediately. We kind of see the aftermath of that after we get out on this happens a little bit after we meet one of the witnesses, actually. Let's see. Her name is Miss Stewart. Miss Stewart. I don't remember if we ever got her first name. Did we get her first name?
Helen Stewart.
Helen Stewart. Okay. Almost everyone always refers to her as Mrs. Stewart.
Right.
She is out on the water and she sees that she sees a man pick up a gun, pointed at a man in uniform, and shoot and kill him. And she swears she sees this. But while she's seeing this, she's out on the water. And
with her mom.
With her mom. And this is where I'm like, I don't know about this episode so much. Because the whole thing here is, boy, is this woman just doesn't know how to sail a boat, huh? They're just women. They can't handle this. Where are the men? And it's like, I don't know. It's a bit much. And also it feels like the acting, it's got a lot of improv-y stuff happening. Who's the actor for Miss Stewart?
That would be a Suzanne
Yeah,
Plachette.
Suzanne Plachette, which is a name I recognize. I don't know what else she was in, but I get the sense that they were like kind of letting her do her thing, and it wasn't jiving so much with the Columbo that I've come to know and love. So,
Oh, so she was in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds.
oh,
So
okay,
how
all
about
right,
that?
yeah,
Now I don't know if she was like she's third billing here. She was Annie
yes.
Hayworth in The Birds. So that's probably her most famous role there.
Yeah, so that was like, okay, cool. You're having your fun improv, whatever. And it's a lot of it's like, whoa, the sale. What do I do? What do I do? Uh, but she says, hey, I just saw a murder. I just saw someone shoot someone else. A man in a bathrobe shot a man in uniform. Tells this to her mother, and her mother's like, you dumb bitch, you didn't see anything.
She's not impressed. They have a very toxic
You're
relationship.
imagining things. They have a very toxic relationship, and it does not relent the entire episode.
No, they seem to hang out with each other constantly. Like, why are they out on this boat with each other? They don't
Yeah,
seem to
they
get
hate
along.
each other, but nope, this is just how it is. And so Suzanne Plachette's character, Miss Stewart's like, I am going to report this to the police because I know what I saw. I don't care what you say, Mom. I know what I saw. So they dock the boat. She runs over the phone, and she's not going to call until her mother's like, see, I knew you weren't going to call. You're too afraid because you know you're just seeing things. That prompts her to actually make the phone call. That gets us, Columbo, over at the house to look into this. Basically, a police officer answers and talks to her a little bit and is like, hey, what's going on here? She's like, in that house over there, I saw someone kill someone. But the police officer knows whose house that is. It is the general, who is this very famous person, a very famous person. Actually, we're going to find out by the end of the episode. And so he's like, I'm not going to go over there. We need to send someone who's got like some rank here to be a little bit more cautious. And that's what ends up with Columbo going over to the house to ask some questions.
Yeah, one of my favorite things in all of these episodes is actually these elegant, elaborate 70s LA homes we get to visit. And this is a phone because it is right there on the sea, right? He has his own little dock for his boat. A pretty
Yep.
unique looking look. This one has kind of the giant living room, and it's 70s is all get with the red carpet and all this other stuff. I don't know why, but just like that's a big part of the fun for me is the 70s time capsule ness of this. And there is a little bit of a different thing going on here aesthetically. We're in a different part of LA than we supposedly see in a lot of other episodes.
Yeah, we're in a marina. Morago Cove is something that gets brought up later. If anyone's from that area and has any idea what these places are, I do not.
No.
But yes, it's I'm with you on that. Where it's like, oh, they're always showing high society, but this is a different kind of high society even than most, where it's this giant mansion on the water and seeing that stuff. And yeah, it's very plush, like everything that's fancy back then. Looks very cushiony, and yeah, I like it a lot as well. All right, so yes, Columbo is now in the mix. He shows up, and he is going to ask Hollister some questions. While he's doing that, he does tell the police officer who called him in to go check out the boat. He's like, I'll get permission. If we don't get permission, we'll get a warrant, but I'll be able to get permission. They go back and forth a little bit here, Mike, but really it comes down to Columbo's not getting a lot, but he does get an explanation for what Helen Stewart saw through the window. Hollister says, I was wearing my bathrobe, and then later I changed into my uniform because I wanted to try it on. Because I'm giving all this stuff to an exhibition about my career, and so I was kind of being nostalgic. So I was in my bathrobe, then I tried it on, and then later he says, oh, and then I was like, I picked up my pistol, my targeting pistol, because I was like, should I give that? Because that's something I like won a targeting award with before. Should I hand that over to the exhibition? And I just couldn't give it up. But I was holding the gun, and I tripped, and I fell, and that must be what she saw. So she saw me in the bathrobe, and then she saw me in the uniform, and then she saw me trip, and that's the explanation. Columbo takes this back to her and says, does that sound reasonable? And she's like, it sounds reasonable, but it's not what I saw. And she's certain of it. And this is like, okay, well, we're getting things up. Before this happens, though, Columbo, Hollister does ask Columbo, who reported me. Columbo doesn't tell him. But yes, so Columbo goes back and explains this to her. And she's like, no, she is certain 100% that's what she saw. And that's kind of leaves Hollister in the situation where he's mostly okay, mostly in the good, because there's just not much tying him to any of this except for what she saw. So he's still curious about how he can get to this witness that leads him down to the boat docks where he talks to the shipping guy, or the boat rental guy, who says, yeah, I had someone out here who was a terrible sailor. And at this point, Mike, I'm like, oh, he's gonna kill her. He's gonna take her out on the boat and drown her.
It was 1,000,000% gonna be like in Murder by the Book, right? Where like somebody knows too much and he goes after it. It is a weird move by him here. Like, I get it. It's like, oh, this person saw a murder. I got to find out who it is. But I mean, what could make you look more suspicious than finding out who this person is and starting to pursue them like this?
This is where the character didn't super work for me, the killer, because we learned later on through a news report that people consider him to be so charming. Oh, if any man could be said to have had charm, it is certainly Major General Hollister. Martin J. Hollister's got charm. I'm like, I don't get that. I don't see that. It doesn't appear.
Yeah.
It doesn't show up on the screen. And it's like, well, that's his best tool, his best weapon, other than shooting someone. He's very good at shooting, but he's also very good at being charming. And so he's going to go and turn on the charm for this woman, and that's how he's going to get out of this. That's the plan here. And the we'll get to that point. That does work as far as the plot's concerned. It just doesn't. There's no chemistry there to actually make that feel believable.
No, like you said, it definitely felt more like, even like when he was quote unquote flirting, it felt more like threats to me. He just shows up at her apartment. It's like, you should watch the news tonight.
Yeah.
like okay, please don't kill me. Yeah, it's kind of it was creepy more than anything else. Like, charming, wasn't really getting that.
Yeah, so that's we'll get to that point as well. So Columbo goes back to Miss Hollister's to ask a few more Miss Stewart's to ask a few more questions. And this is where we continue to see that this Helen Stewart just doesn't have her shit together. She lives with her mom who hates her. She's got some sculptures in her living room where she's like, oh, he's like, is this a llama? And she's like, I try to make it look more truthful than what real life was like. She's just a shitty artist. Like, all this stuff is just real bad. Her life's a mess.
There's a lot of insecurities to prey on here.
Yes, and that is exactly where Hollister comes in. He does come to her apartment, and he's like, hey, you accused me of murder. So, oh, wow.
Jesus Christ.
That's a good opening. All right. And then she's like, what the fuck? And he's like, listen, I'm not going to hurt you. Just watch the 11 o'clock news, as you said. And that's his big thing. I'm like, okay. And then this is where we do see that he is very famous. This exhibition that they have is about him. He is a war hero, and he had a pistol, a famous pistol that he carried with him all throughout the Korean War, that he used to single-handedly like take out like some group of enemies or something like that. He like overtook them by just hunting them down with his pistol. And so that that little tidbit in the news, Columbo's watching as well. That it comes to his attention. He's like, oh yeah, his famous pistol. What about that thing? Why is that not accounted for? That leads him back over to Hollister to get answers about that. And Hollister says, that gun, I lost it in the Korean War. I went to the hospital and I, set it aside, and someone stole it from me, and I don't have it anymore. So the museum's not going to get it. And he said, well, that's not exactly right. We had a duplicate made, and the museum is getting that one instead. So it's like, okay, that again, asked and answered. That feels reasonable. We did see him pick up an ornamental gun though, and shoot the Dutton with it. So we know something's off there. Something's happening with that gun.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, this gun, you're like, is this a red herring? Because there's a couple of them earlier. I mean, there's almost that comical box he's loading everything in when Columbo walks in. That literally looks like a coffin.
Human-sized box. Yes, actually, that's my note here. It's a human-sized box.
And he even does kind of look at it. He's like, oh, you can look in there if you want to.
Yeah. Like they start nailing it shut before Columbo gets a chance to look in there. And Columbo's like, can I look in the box? And Hollister's like, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? And it's like, yeah, but I'm going to look.
I don't know why. It's actually one of my favorite things in this episode. It's just this literal coffin.
I like that as well. There. It's like, of course, Hollister. It's like, wait, what? We never did see what happened with the body. Hollister's out doing all this stuff. He's going out on the town with his boys and all these things. And he had gone to visit Miss Stewart to, threaten her or tell her to watch the news or whatever. When he does get home, we do see that he still has Dutton hanging up in a plastic bag in his closet.
Okay, actually, another one of my favorite parts is the literal hidden bookcase that this guy is just hanging.
Hidden bookcase in his office. Yes, exactly.
So that was incredible. Like, his body was just still there. He never got rid of it yet.
Oh, yeah, my other note. I like this during the news report. Columbo's watching it at like some deli or something, and the guy that runs the deli is just loving this news story about this general. He's just like, yeah, let's fucking go. Yeah, this guy's got a cool
real
gun.
hero. You know what I mean, Columbo?
Yeah, that sort of thing. So that's pretty good. So yes, let's see. Columbo asked about his famous Colt 45. He got the answer there. Hollister, the next day. So he wakes up early. No, doesn't wait. He actually never went to bed. So he gets the body, puts it on his boat. He goes out in the middle of the night and he adds some weights to the boat, to the body, and sinks it into the marina. And then as he's coming back, Columbo's waiting for him. And I do believe that's when he asks about the gun and he gets the answers there. Columbo does notice, though, hey, everyone else is going out right now. Why are you coming back in? And Hollister's answer to that is like, hey, I didn't become a major general by doing things the way everyone else did it. Yeah, that one doesn't feel quite as good, right?
No, we're slipping a little bit here. There's no good reason, unless he had to get rid of a body, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it feels a very convenient time to get rid of a body. I suppose maybe you want to go out early, really early for fishing.
Yeah, is this also where Columbo was fishing, right? When he comes back and we get Hollister's great kind of I know that you know line, but good luck catching me. He says, find a different spot or use a different bait. Otherwise, you're not going to catch anything, Lieutenant.
Yes, I think I have that exact quote written down here as well. That's just I do like it when the killers begin suggesting, hey, I know we're playing a game. I know what you need to catch me, and I don't think you're going to be able to get it.
Even when the chemistry isn't incredible like it has been in some of the other episodes, the cat and mouse game is always a lot of fun.
Yes. Let's see. So then Hollister does show up at Miss Stewart's work. Her mother told Hollister where she works. That's always fun. So Hollister wants to take her out for a drink. And that's when he turns on the famous charm, Mike. He's just like, and I wrote down here, he's about as charming as a bowl of wheat. He's just got nothing going on in the department. It is very much tell not show in that stuff. And I don't know this actor. I don't know what he's been in. He's vaguely familiar. Wait, is he from Dennis the Menace?
Oh no! I don't think so. You mean the original?
The original Dennis the Menace. I don't know. Maybe not.
His name is Eddie Albert. Is the actor's name? Let's see here now. Best known for Academy Award nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Roman Holiday, and then for The Heartbreak Kid. He was in the original Longest Yard.
Okay, sure.
Green Acres. Is
he the guy from Green Acres, or did he just have a couple episodes? I recognize his face.
He starred as Oliver Wendell Douglas.
Okay.
Yes, I think he's the star.
That's where I know him from.
Green Acres. Yep, that's it. So that's what you know from the
Nick
star
at
of
Night
Green Acres.
energy for me, for sure.
Yes,
when I'm like,
he did.
Yes, and that's kind of the that kind of TV is definitely the kind of acting he was bringing here, and it mostly was fine. But again, it's not as charming as some of the other things. And we'll get to someone like, what's the Spock actor's name?
Leonard Nimoy.
We'll get to Leonard Nimoy eventually, but that's like, I'm always thinking about that performance as like the top tier of what you can get from here, and this isn't anything like that.
No.
So Columbo visits Stewart, and she mentioned she was Columbo does eventually go to visit Stewart after she has these drinks with Hollister, and she mentions that she was dining with General Hollister, and Columbo was like, what? Like,
that's great, because Columbo's just like, wow, okay.
Columbo has to do the thing like, I don't know, maybe he's up to something.
Yeah, you think?
And this is where we see that, like, oh my God, a man is paying attention to her. She's been divorced once.
Yeah.
And so she is just all about any attention, even if it's from someone she saw kill somebody. Like,
well, did she though? Because who knows what you saw? She was on the water. There was like a sun glare.
Oh, yeah, you're just a woman. Can you really trust your own brain? Again, it's a lot of that stuff. But that's clearly the story here, is how they're kind of framing it. Is like, this is just a little woman, and she's got this big man who is telling her, what you saw me do didn't really happen. You can't even trust your own brain. You know who you can trust? Me. So Columbo's like, this is a problem, but I can't explain to her or she's going to kind of blow up, because she does get very offended when he suggests that something more could be happening here and stuff like that. So
she's very scared. It's like, oh, what are you saying? Oh, so he couldn't be interested in me, huh? No one would be interested in me.
Right.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
And when Columbo had talked to her previously, he would say stuff like, when I went there's no evidence of this happening. So can you tell me more? And she was, at that time, she was like very defiant, saying, no, I know what I saw. But now when she's gotten this attention from Hollister, she says something like, you said there was nothing. So, and now you're like, he's like, I didn't say that. I just said I couldn't find anything. So he's kind of in this rock and a hard place situation with trying to get her to come back out of this stupor that she's finding herself in. Let's see here. He does mention, let's see, Columbo mentions that Dutton's car was picked up by the police after some kids hotwired it and took it joyriding. Columbo thinks that maybe Dutton is the man that Stewart saw in the house, because he would have been in uniform, and that's a pretty reasonable leap there. He did have a flight booked to Switzerland that we talked about that he never showed up for after taking a sudden leave, and now nobody has heard from him. So Columbo's already followed up on that aspect. And he does know that Dutton is missing way before it would have naturally have happened when he didn't come back from his leave. Let's see. Columbo shows a picture of Dutton to Stewart, who says she can't be sure if that's who she saw. It all happened so fast. So she's already kind of talking herself out of it a little bit. Columbo's one more thing in this situation is he basically puts Stewart's entire ass on blast here by saying, you're the one who downgrades yourself one dinner with Hollister and you begin to doubt your own senses. It's like, yeah, that's and she's just kind of gets offended by this. It's too late on that front, it seems like. On Hollister's boat now, Columbo shows on Hollister's boat, Stewart gets shown the reflection on the window of the house by Hollister, who's trying to be like, no, you really can't trust your own senses. And this is something that occurred to me, Mike, when she originally saw the killing. I was like, man, during the day outside for most homes, you can't actually see inside because it's so reflective. Sure. So I was like, oh, they're probably not going to acknowledge that. It's probably something it's a story. It doesn't matter. So them actually bringing that up as a point of like, yeah, you can't see in there. Look how much the sun is reflecting off of that stuff. It's like, okay, no, they're just acknowledging that in that time of day, maybe it was cloudy, maybe she's not remembering it right. But this gave her enough of a cover to be like, no, I couldn't have actually seen in there, and I don't want to believe what I saw, and that gives her like ground to stand on at that point, right?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's clear he's being manipulative. He's almost being too obviously manipulative. Yes. And you just got to go with, well, she is so scared. She's so kind of desperate and just happy to have somebody. I mean, look, taking her out on his yacht, right? The famous war hero.
Right.
Sure, I guess. But it's also so obvious what he's doing.
Yeah, these things they're coded as charming, right? And he can continue doing them. He takes her home.
It's still, also the age gap, right? It literally looks like someone's grandpa taking them out on the boat, but whatever.
Yep. He takes her home. He wants her to dance, and of course they kiss. And so like he's fully got her ensnared now. Meanwhile, though, Dutton's body shows up in the water. Yes, Dutton's body floats to the top.
Is that the dead weight?
Yeah, that might be the dead weight, Mike. I think we got our titular dead weight here.
We got it.
Columbo is waiting for Hollister this time once again. But Hollister says he can't talk unless Columbo wants to go for a ride on the boat. Columbo does go out there. And as always, it's like, man, are they going to... I don't remember from all the episodes I've seen if anyone ever actually threatens Columbo or like is very overt about threatening him. But this is a situation where it gets pretty close about the implication, right? This is the implication.
Yeah, I know. I've seen some other episodes in the future. I know there's at least one where Columbo gets a gun drawn on him, and that's like a rare thing.
Right.
But yeah.
So Columbo's like, hey, you hear about this body? Dutton's body was found. Do you know about that? Apparently someone weighed him down, and he was found out in Morago Cove, which is not too far from the marina that you're from, that you sail through. And apparently something must have chewed through the wires and chewed through the rope. Maybe a shark chewed through that stuff, and then the body floated to the top. And he's like, he says, I like this line, I've been studying tides. Is
that like war general talk for I was washing my hair?
Right. This is, I think this is something Columbo says Columbo says this to Hollister when he's like, I've been studying the tides, and I can see
That's right.
that body, if it was dropped in the marina, might show up in Morago Cove. And the general's like, well, might is the operative word there. That's the thing. So that I was just like, I love the idea of Columbo studying the movement of oceans and things like that. That's a very good thing.
Like, we never see like him like down in like the books at home, like researching whatever thing he thinks might help him. But you would get that impression he's this workaholic who is going way above and beyond to figure these things out, including studying tides.
Including studying tides.
Off the coast of LA.
Important here, Columbo says, hey, man, I'm trying to protect you. This is definitely gamesmanship again, but he's like, I'm trying to protect you. The boys back at the precinct, they think they have a good case against you because there's motive. We discovered these government contracts that they look pretty sweetheart deals. They might think you've been trying to defraud the government. And that Dutton was helping you do that. So that's a connection between you and him and provides motive. You also would have opportunity when you were out on the boat early that morning to get rid of the body. That's pretty interesting. Hollister definitely knows what's going on here. So when he's like, the boys back at the precinct, huh? Sure. And it's like almost in air quotes. So they know what's happening here. They're going head to head. And we will get back into this and keep going with this right after these quick messages. Okay, so where we left things off, Columbo and Hollister are going at it on the boat. They're having their tete-a-tete, going back and forth until Hollister's like, this bitch can't handle the sea. I'm a Marine. I know how to do this. So he begins like kind of making the boat go fast and slow. He's testing out his engines for his big ride that he's going to be taking the next couple of weeks or something like that. Columbo starts getting seasick. And this is definitely Hollister trying to kind of put him on his heels and show him his place a little bit, I think. Well, I don't know. How'd you read this scene?
No, I think that's exactly right. I think Hollister was getting some enjoyment out of it. And of course, poor schlubby Columbo's going to get seasick. We see him get seasick in at least one other episode. There's a kind of a quip there. What a man with the name like Columbo should be more at home on a boat, right? He's like, must have been a different branch of the family.
That's that Italian stereotyping, Mike. How incensed were you?
Yeah, I want to see how I'm going to be on boats. We'll see how I do. I guess I'll go report which part of the genes I got.
I think it's the Pinta, the Minotti, and the Santa Maria, right?
Yeah, that's something like that.
The three boats are. The one other aspect that Columbo brings up about this is, let's see here, that Dutton's car. So Dutton's car was found. But when Columbo visited Hollister that first day, a car that matches the make and model of Dutton's was out front that day. And Hollister's like, there's probably thousands of those cars in Southern California. Hey, did you check the registration? Famous or really good detective, did you check that while you were there that day? You always check all the details. Columbo's like, no, I didn't. And Hollister says, that's unfortunate. So again, he knows what Columbo needs, and he knows that, like, nope, it's just out of reach. And if he doesn't have that stuff, doesn't really matter. If Columbo really knows, it's what he can prove, and so far he can't prove anything. Especially with Miss Stewart going back on her description of everything, right?
Right, you don't have the eyewitness account anymore, and that would have been, obviously that might have almost been enough. He had an eyewitness account, and then all this other stuff falling into place, the body, the motive, the weird fact that he tracked down the person that was an eyewitness to the murder and started dating them. Right?
Just a completely transparent, the most transparent of any of these killers so far.
Right. I mean, the character, it's a recurring thing where the killers often dig a hole for themselves by trying to help Columbo, right? But this is like a whole different avenue of that.
Exactly. And it's different variations on overconfidence, which is born out of like the types of characters that these murderers always are. These high-class people who do get away with everything and are used to being believed and are used to people around them saying yes. So it's almost always believable in the context of Columbo that a character would behave this way, that they think they're going to be able to get away with it and they know better than everyone else and just watch me do these things. So I do continue to like that aspect. So Columbo knows he needs Miss Stewart. He needs Helen Stewart to kind of to go back and say what she was originally saying. And he goes to talk to her, and she's just full on in that goo goo gaga for Hollister now. She's like, I need that dick. I just need that dick.
Jesus.
That's what she's behaving like. It's crazy. I'm like, when I was watching the scene, I'm like, Oh my God. They just have her acting like a completely brain dead person.
Yeah.
She
It's a
doesn't.
little pathetic, the portrayal.
Yes, she doesn't even care that about Colonel Dutton's body. Like that isn't even registering with her. She now fully believes what she saw was a crazy reflection, and that she made a
Yeah,
mistake.
blinded by love, Jeff. Come on. Come on. Can't you relate?
Columbo's defeated. He goes back to the diner, and he's hanging out with that guy from earlier that really liked the stories about war. This is a guy that keeps all his war trophies, too, and now he has to keep him in the diner because his wife wants him to get rid of them. But it's like, you can't get rid of something if it really matters to you. And that kind of hits Columbo. He's like, that's interesting. When you put it like that, and I look at the kind of man that Hollister is, would he have been the kind of person to misplace his gun to the point where someone could have stolen it without him noticing it? And he runs off, and clearly he has a new plan. So, yeah, what's up? What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, and this is the kind of it's kind of a little convoluted. All this stuff with the gun that's about to happen. Almost a little hard to follow when you do it. I don't know if it's super satisfying, and it was also so obviously important when it was brought up earlier. You almost kind of hoped it was a red herring. Yeah. This gun, right? But it is the linchpin to all this.
That's where I'm at too with this, Mike. Where when it was first brought up, I'm like, it's okay if that's like part of the solution, but it does end up being kind of the solution here.
It's the whole thing.
So what happens is Columbo goes and does some legwork. We don't see any of that, but he does get a hold of Stewart again, and says, "Hey, can you come meet me at the exhibit, the exhibit for Hollister? And I'm not going to ask any questions, and I'm not going to try to get you to change your mind. I just want to show you a couple of things." And they go there, and he's showing her some of the stuff, but really, he's waiting for Hollister to show up as well. And now he's got them both here, and he's going to say, "Hey, I don't think that this gun is a duplicate, because you are the kind of man who wouldn't even get rid of a lighter." Like earlier in the episode, we saw him hold like precious this special lighter to him that he also got during the war, and he's like, "You're not even going to give that up. The idea that you would not have your gun with you and not take care of that for someone as put together as you just seems completely implausible." And so I think when we get this gun, we're going to find out that it's the real gun and that it's going to match the bullet when we have ballistics look at it, and we're going to be able to match the two things together. And what happens is Hollister realizes this guy's been so far ahead of me that he probably has already done this. He says, "You've already tested it, haven't you?" And then two ballistics guys come out of the corner and are like, "Surprise, bitch!" And
quite staged.
Yes, quite staged. Pretty elaborate. And I think I'm with you, Mike. This, I mean, not super satisfying. It doesn't feel like it's not very clever. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's still pretty okay. I don't know. It's not my favorite.
It's fine.
With you. It's convoluted. You're right.
It's a little convoluted, yeah.
And then he does the thing which we usually get, where he's like, "Yep, you got me. But don't handcuffs, and I don't need to be escorted. I'm just gonna walk on out."
I wonder if we're ever going to see like a real pathetic like defeat, like William H. Macy at the end of Fargo or something.
Yeah, I actually always do kind of wait for that one to happen.
Like screaming and crying like a baby. Like they don't want to go in.
Then Columbo, actually Hollister says sorry to Helen Stewart, and then leaves with the cops. And then Columbo kind of talks to Stewart, and it really is just as simple as like, "I can't believe I fell for his charms, but I'm only a woman." That's the explanation once again. Yeah, it's quite something, but hey, what can you do?
It's the 70s. I bet there weren't a lot of women writing on Columbo.
Probably not. Okay, Mike. So, how'd you feel about this episode overall? I think you said earlier you probably rated it at the bottom of the three. I'm with you on that, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's nothing terrible. It's still a fun watch.
Yes.
But yeah, the chemistry all around just isn't great. It's not the most compelling or interesting killer. It's not the best mystery. There's still plenty of fun here. And, I'm kind of a sucker for slightly nautical stuff, so even that element's okay. I like that diner guy. That whole thing is fun enough. Like I said, I don't know. I do love that giant box that literally looks like a cask in the beginning.
Some really good moments here, yes.
Yeah, the fact that the guy was just hanging behind a hidden bookcase that entire time, the corpse, I mean. So, Yeah, still a fun watch, but definitely the weakest of the three and of the season so far.
And then our podcast within a podcast ranking of where you put these the murderers. How do you rank this murderer compared to the other two?
Yeah, probably the weakest, and probably still in order that we have seen them so far, right? So, Murder by the Book, it's got to be number one. And then, I'm bad at remembering people's names. So yeah, the Jack Cassidy Murder by the Book has been number one. The Death Lends a Hand is
the Robert Culp character.
Robert Culp.
Yes,
that's a great character.
Yes, Death Lends a Hand. I really like that character. Both of them were very very compelling, and I think this they got all of the accoutrement of a Columbo murderer correct. Like, this is a very high class person, someone who had this stunning military career, and then parlayed that into I have a construction company, and now I'm like I have a mansion and all this stuff. Someone who played their cards right, but then kind of just kept pushing and taking advantage of their privileges, and all that stuff really works for me. I do appreciate it when they get that stuff right.
Right.
Just the characterization a little bit subpar compared to what we saw in the last two characters.
Jack Cassidy was just such this obvious slime ball that was interesting. And then Robert Culp just had that background seething rage that kind of made him seem dangerous, right?
Yep.
The thing here is supposed to be this general's charm, like you said, and just, I guess, his sort of prestige, right? He is this war general, sure, but it never really comes out as strong as those other characters.
That's right. That's gonna do it though, Mike.
Well, I got a couple little fun things.
Oh yeah, that's right. You mentioned a couple of that stuff. So yeah, so what's the behind the scenes stuff on Dead Weight?
Yeah, there actually was some feuding going on at the time of the filming this with Peter Falk in the studio. Basically, Peter Falk thought that the studio was kind of reneging on a agreement that he would get to direct some episodes of the show. So he kind of basically was calling in sick, even had a doctor's note, kept basically refusing to show up on the set for a little bit there. So they filmed a lot of stuff without him and with a double. Helen Stewart, who was friends with Falk, the relationship was a little bit strained because of that. So there's a little something going on with the studio and Falk at this time. Yeah. And then the other kind of fun thing is, we never know Columbo's first name, right? But there is a point here where you can get a pretty good look at his badge, and it says Frank Columbo. So even though it's not necessarily canon,
right,
it's the best we got for a first name is Frank Columbo, and that is because of this good glimpse at his badge that we get in this episode.
That's interesting. Did the feud between him and the studio get resolved to the point where he does direct some episodes?
I'm pretty sure he directs episodes. So yeah, I think it did. I think, this is still relatively early on. I think that eventually you just gotta have to keep the star happy, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, totally. And then, okay, yeah. And then I wonder if do any of these actors reappear in later episodes? Do we know that? Because that's
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it's not. I don't think it's like, both the last two do have pretty notable reappearances.
Right.
I am not sure if that is the case here.
Interesting. All right. Any other final thoughts about Dead Weight, Mikey?
No, I'm not gonna go for the cheap joke here. Say that this episode's dead weight. It's not.
It's not.
It's fine. It's fun enough, but yeah, it's just not as great as some of the others.
I definitely agree with that. It's a fun watch. I think that's the right way to put it. And that's where I usually need Columbo to be. Give me make me feel like I'm entertained, and that the cat and mouse game is getting somewhere. It does that stuff right. So I had a good time.
Hey, by the way,
yeah,
Peter Falk does direct 2 episodes of Columbo, including Blueprint for Murder, which is episode 7 of season 1, and then the first episode of season 2, Etude in Black. So yeah, he got his way pretty quickly, I think, after his little sick day.
We'll see if he's better directing than William Shatner with Star Trek V.
How dare you? I don't know if I like Star Trek V. I unenthusiastically kind of defend Star Trek V, kind of in the way that I defend Sonic Superstars.
I haven't seen it in a very long time. I should give it a chance. I watch 4 and 6 pretty much constantly.
Well, they're great. Those are great. It's not as good as those.
No, yes, of course not. All right, Columbo, thanks for hanging out with me talking about Columbo, man. We'll do it again in a month.
You're welcome, Columbro. Sounds good.
See you all then. Have a good one. Until then, have a good one. Take care of yourself. Bye.